You know those things that they do the movies, you know, when it starts and everything.
Yeah, that's it.
They're being recorded.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
This morning we're raised to have Venetia Johnson from Richland 2 and Sarah Lewis from Lutheran Services. Sarah is connected to the New Americans program, and one of the things, or quite a few of the things on the giving tree, is to collect for Lutheran Services for a kitchen set. So you'll find doves on the tree, and we're going to be collecting those for the next 2 weeks, and we'll bring it all together on July 26th when we have our Christmas in July program. So one of the things that we just did for with Lutheran Services was, as Gail talked about, is the refugee gathering in the afternoon, which was a joyous, I was so blessed to be a part of that. So I'll turn this over to Sarah, and when she's done, then we'll bring Venetia up. So Sarah, you got it.
Thanks so much. Hello everyone, good morning. I love coming to Living Springs. It has been such a joy to be a part of what you're doing in our community and to partner together throughout the last several years. I was telling Helen that the first time I came to visit this church, we had already been partnering for a while, but mostly it was via phone and email with Pastor Eric and Reagan and the Circle of Welcome about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And so when I came to speak to the church, I remember going back to my colleagues at Lutheran Services and saying, that church is actually a small church. Like this whole time, I think our team really thought it was some mega church in the Northeast because of the amount of help y'all gave us constantly. And I'm not exaggerating. Like every large family, and we're in a slow time right now with refugee arrivals, but as some of you may know, we were in an extremely busy season for the last several years, and we had huge families arriving every week or every other week, and Pastor Eric was always getting bus drivers to come. I mean, how many times that Living Spring bus and those teddy bears were being given out to all the kids? And then Karen was always collecting catching kits for us, and you did other drives too. I mean, how many meals and supplies and picking up from the airport, and then this camp that's been going on for 4 or 5 years for the refugee kids, which started, I just always like to say, the year after the Afghan crisis. So like I said, over 4 years ago, suddenly we had all these refugee kids and not much camp opportunities for them. Things have gotten better over the years, but at that time there was just sudden influx, and transportation was a problem, money was a problem. You know, there was a lot of challenges with the current camp offerings for our kids. And there was a group of churches that was doing a camp, but it was just focused on Afghan kids. And so we had all these other kids from other countries that weren't Afghan, and we felt really bad, and we were like, well, what are we going to do? We talked to Pastor Eric, and he's like, oh, we'll do a day camp for them. And so that's where it was born, was making sure everyone was included. And so we had all these kids from other countries just having a lovely day, and it's been such a lovely day every year ever since, and we so appreciate what y'all have done. So anyway, we love this church. We think the world of y'all back at our little office downtown. These are a few pictures of the last World Refugee Day that we had on May 30th. I can't remember if anyone from your church, I think Reagan may have been there in Hunter, but World Refugee Day is a big celebration we have every year to celebrate our folks and the countries they are from. And in the past, we had budget to put on this party and rent a space and rent a Blue Man and rent Pelican's Eyes and stuff like that. In the last year or two, as you may have known, our budgets have been decimated, and a lot of the money's been taken away and stuff like that. And so local churches have really stepped in. And so basically every single thing we did here was either paid for by a local church or donated by a local church or volunteered by a local church. The space was, it was just the most beautiful outpouring of community for our refugee folks, and it just makes me so happy. We even have a baby camel we got 2 churches paid for Eudora Farms to come out and bring their petting zoo. And then this is my baby. I know some of you knew I was pregnant last year. It's my baby with a little refugee friend, so we had a good time. I think some of you may have seen these pictures. Maybe, did anyone meet Yvonne who came last year? Was anyone here when Yvonne came to speak? There she is there. So yeah, we love stuff like that. So I know I've spoken here a few times, and I don't want to belabor the point or make y'all like bored. How many of you have heard me speak before and know a little bit about what the New Americans program is? Anyone familiar? Okay. So I don't want to like go over everything, but I'll just give a few quick points for those who aren't as familiar. We serve folks that are coming to us through the State Department, and we are assigned these folks. And so everyone who we serve is legal to be here, and it is specific statuses. So we cannot serve someone on a tourist visa or someone who's here as a student. Sometimes DSS will just send us someone who doesn't speak English and say, Lutheran Services will take care of you. That's not how we serve people. We love to serve everyone, but our programs are federal programs, and so we are very distinctly aligned with what the Office of Refugee Resettlement decides. So that is based in Washington, D.C., and that changes sometimes. You know, maybe you've read the news. There's been a lot of changes with parole, humanitarian parole, which is a temporary status. So right now we don't have a lot of parolees. That has nothing to do with prison. It just means someone is temporarily allowed in the country. So there has been a lot of changes with that. So right now we're not serving as many parolees because of the changes coming out of Washington. Some years there's a lot of parole programs going on, like during the beginning of the Ukrainian war, there was a lot of parole programs, and then we were serving more parolees. So who we serve is directly affected with what's going on in the world, but mostly what's going on in Washington and how the Office of Refugee Resettlement is deciding who can come in the country, who can't, things like that. So we serve whoever we're given by the U.S. government. Our biggest group of people, their designation, their status is refugee. A lot of times you hear that word thrown around kind of in a very general sense of the word, like someone that doesn't have a home. Well, that is kind of true. That's not the legal term of the word refugee. Refugee is a very specific term that is, it is a legal status. So, for example, the folks that came at the beginning of the Ukraine war through a parole program, their status was not refugee. You might have heard on the news people saying Ukrainian refugees, but their actual status was not refugee. Their status was humanitarian parole, which meant they were allowed in the country for a short amount of time based on this sponsorship program, because everyone was hoping the war would end quickly. So they were allowed in the country for 2 years. They could work once they got their employment authorization document. It was a very different program, very different status than refugee. One is not better than the other, it's just different, okay? And so refugee is a permanent status. It takes years and years and years to get that status. You go through multiple amounts of checks and interviews overseas through the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. You have to determine that you are eligible for this status because you have been persecuted. So it is tied with persecution. It's not only tied, now, a lot of times persecution comes from if your country's in a war and there's an ethnic cleansing or something like that. But the word refugee, you don't get refugee status, and I'm not trying to be dismissive, but just because your country's in a war, while that is terrible, that doesn't automatically grant you refugee status, because your country might be in a war about land, and it's not that necessarily one people group is targeting the other. It's not an ethnic cleansing or persecution politically or religious. That doesn't make you eligible for refugee status. Does that make sense? So that's a little bit of the difference with the Ukrainian. I'm bringing up Ukrainian because probably a lot of us are familiar. Once again, it doesn't mean one's better than the other or someone's not good enough or something like that. It just means that's why the Ukrainian folks were coming in on a parole program, because they were not leaving ethnic cleansing, they were leaving a war. Now, there's a small group of an ethnic group in Ukraine that is eligible for refugee status, based on an agreement right after World War II, but that's based on ethnic targeting, if that makes sense. So the refugees we get, so once they are designated overseas refugees, meaning that comes with that gathering all those stories to see, okay, you are being persecuted for some reason. It might be religious, it might be being part of a particular social group. There's a lot of reasons why you could have persecution. You're also stateless, right? Then the designated refugee, and then sometimes you're waiting in a refugee camp for many years. Sometimes you're waiting in a neighborhood, but you don't have a place in that country. Maybe that country has allowed you to remain kind of in limbo. A lot of our folks from Syria were like in limbo in neighborhoods in Jordan. A lot of our Rohingya clients were from a big refugee camp in Bangladesh. Clients that are coming from Congo often are coming from a refugee camp in Kenya. You know, so it kind of depends. You're not always coming from a refugee camp, but many times you are. Once the United States, so the United States State Department decides, the president decides every year how many people can come in through the refugee program and also from what parts of the world. So that presidential determination happens each year, and that number goes up and down depending on who's in Washington and also what's going on in the world. For example, during COVID, nobody came in. During the when Afghanistan fell, only Afghans came in. Everybody else was paused from the U.S. refugee program. So things, go up and down depending on what's going on. Right now, there's a lot of bans on a lot of countries. So right now, we're receiving very few refugees because the presidential determination has become very low with numbers, and also there's a lot of countries banned. So the variety is much smaller right now, as well as the numbers. A couple of years ago, there was a lot of variety, and there was very high numbers. So sometimes it's a little feast and famine. It kind of just changes, and so that's. We don't handle any of that. We are assigned those folks once they have been assigned to our national partner, Global Refuge, by the State Department. So they work together. They handle the travel. Refugees pay back the travel loan. So that's not something the U.S. government just gives them. The International Office of Migration books the travel for them and decides. Of course, the U.S. has many other checks, making sure everyone's okay. They work with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees who can come in. Now, the president can decide, the U.S. Office of Refugee Resettlement sometimes will make their own determination and will say, they're not, of course, the U.S. government can kind of do it at once as well. So usually they work with the UN, but sometimes they might decide that a people group that maybe the UN hasn't processed, they're going to let them in as refugees as well. Sometimes that happens. So no matter what is going on behind the scenes, we're not involved in any of that. We serve who we're given to serve. So the State Department decides, okay, these people are coming in. They work with our national office. Our national office disseminates those cases to the local offices across the country. And then we get assigned those families. And then we find out there's a big family coming at the airport, and we call Pastor Eric. So, special immigrant visa holders, this is a smaller group we serve. This is also a permanent status. Both of these statuses, path to citizenship. Asylees, this is very small amount of people that we serve, but we can serve someone who is already being granted asylum, but they would come in as a walk-in. Humanitarian parolees, unless they're being, almost all our humanitarian parolees, I think every one of them actually comes in as a walk-in as well. A lot of times that's with the sponsorship program, that's some of the Ukrainians, Haitian entrants, Cuban entrants. So those aren't assigned to us through that pathway that I spoke about. Those aren't assigned to us, they're not being sent over here on the government loan for an airplane ticket. They've come a different way to the U.S. and they've either gone through the immigration process and been granted asylum, and then they can be served by us, or they've come in through the border and given through various ways. Maybe it's a sponsorship program. been given that temporary legal status to be here, and then they would walk into us. So this is a smaller group of people we serve through case management and employment. Up here, this is the one, these would come in through our very intense program at the beginning that we do everything for them, like giving them their kitchen supplies, their first meal, setting them up in the hotel, finding them their first house. That's that intense program that we do for the refugees that y'all help so much with, picking them up from the airport, things like that. So there are a lot of programs we have, but it's all under federal guidelines. We serve our clients for 5 years, but those programs change in intensity as the time goes by. So that first 90 days, pretty intense for the new arrivals. We're doing everything for them, and there is a per capita funding for that first 90-day program. So this is the program, it's called Program of Initial Resettlement. And it's the program, that's the one that prepares for the refugees' arrival as soon as we have that travel assigned to us. That's the one where we're giving them the kitchen kit, finding them in the hotel room, or maybe they're at our welcome house, picking them up from the airport, assisting in intense case management for 90 days. And the per capita funding is $2,450. That is for 90 days. That's not per month, that's per person for 90 days. It used to be that refugees were eligible for food stamps. It's not true anymore. That has changed with the budget. So that also needs to account for groceries as well as the first couple of months of rent, as well as, you're trying to make sure they have enough to pay the bills before they get their job, because, sometimes it might take a month or two to get the job. So it's pretty tight, and so that's why things that you give to us, anything that we have to purchase out of that money, just lowers the threshold, right? So anytime we're given kitchen kits or given help with grocery gift cards or things like that, that's always helping move that along. All our programs are based on self-sufficiency. We're getting them to work, things like that. It's not a bankroll at all. But that first 90 days, as you know, when you're moving to somewhere new, even if you're from here, it takes a minute to get a job, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times we're scrambling, especially if someone doesn't read or write or doesn't speak any English. Now, currently, our most recent arrivals, many of them, more of them are coming from South Africa, so they have some English background, which has been helpful for them to get a job more quickly. But like I said, when we have all those countries, when the country bans are not in place, and we're getting folks that don't even read or write their own language, it's really challenging, to get them. I mean, it worked so hard to get them their jobs, but it was hard when the food stamps was cut off and stuff like that. So after they go through that 90 days, then they would go into other programs that are more less hand-holding, if that makes sense, less intense. It's case management and employment. We also have a in-house legal program that helps them with the green card paperwork. And so we also have the school impact program for families, the refugee health promotion program, intensive case management program, services to older refugees program, temporary assistance for needy families program. So there's a lot of different programs that people would be served under depending on what's going on. And so self-sufficiency is the goal of all our programs. Like I said, we're social services agency, not a 911 service or an on-call service or a church or a mission organization. And we're using community members who can come alongside and help us with arrival supplies, help us with tutoring, things like that, working together to come alongside our folks and help them start a new life. Just like so many of us have had, unless you're 100% Native American, all of us have had someone in our family, whether by choice or by force, has come to the U.S. and gone on a long journey of trying to make a new life, right? And so we, here at our office, many of our staff are refugees themselves. Many of our staff have lived overseas or are very close to immigrant family members. So like my great-grandma, she passed away when I was 18. She came through Ellis Island. I always think about her, when I'm helping these folks. And then I myself, I lived in China for several years, and even though I wasn't a refugee, I have a little bit of a taste of, wow, it's really hard when you're in a place that's not your home, at the beginning. So we also have a lot of boundaries for our volunteers. We try to protect y'all and respect your time. You can imagine the challenges our clients face: employment, finances, school, medical system, housing, things like that. So I wanted to just very quickly give you I've kind of said a little bit, but we're still here, but we're facing more budget cuts and staff cuts due to funding. The Good Neighbor Fund has been set up specifically for helping fund the programs during this challenging time. So if you're interested in giving financially, the Good Neighbor Fund is something I could direct you to. Arrivals are slow and farther in between right now, but they're still happening. We're out of all kitchen supplies, so I'm really glad you're doing that. We have some arrivals coming at the end of this month. Since the beginning of this fiscal year, which starts in October for us, we've welcomed 35 refugees from Africa and 10 refugees from Afghanistan to the Midlands area. We have offices across South Carolina, so there's other numbers across South Carolina. There's been a lot of secondary migrants. That means people coming from other states that are refugees that want to start life in South Carolina because they've heard our programs are good, so we're like, good. As of May, a total of 799 clients have been served by our programs in the Midlands. And the travel ban is still in place, as well as a pause for immigration benefits for 39 countries. Since we have a little bit of margin right now, not as many high arrivals, we have small staff because we lost a lot of staff with the budget cuts. But we've been working on health and wellness sessions with art at the library every couple of weeks for our folks, especially for our older refugees. Young women's health classes, especially for our young Afghan women. It's been amazing. I mean, these girls have not been taught anything about health, their bodies, sex education, anything like that. Some of them are engaged to be married, and so that you can imagine the sensitivity needed for these sessions. They got permission from all the parents, but that's been such an important thing. It's been helping. We have volunteers driving them to the classes. Women's Interest Fair, we had a huge turnout for that. Women's health stuff for our ladies. The services drove over to a refugees program, brought our older refugees to the zoo by a volunteer's generous donation. World Refugee Day. We're doing online English classes now for our folks that are scattered in South and North Carolina. And we're still offering employment and case management for all clients. And the refugee camp. Thank you so much for what you did for the refugee camp. So this is just the last slide I'll put up. I know sometimes people are asking, like, how can you help? Obviously now it's called the Good Neighbor Fund, but you know, telling your friends, and then kitchen kits. Right now we really need kitchen supplies. Sometimes we still need arrival supplies, but like I said, those arrivals are a little farther in between, but I still do send out those arrivals emails saying, like, someone's arriving at this time, are you interested in bringing a meal? You know, you can help with that even if you're not an onboarded volunteer, just by responding. I'm going to put out a piece of paper over there that if you're interested in getting my communications, the refugee newsletter, or the arrival emails, just write down your email. Helping as a mentor or tutor, Helen does that. And then donating grocery gift cards. Right now I would say the grocery gift cards and the kitchen kits are our biggest need. But thanks for sticking around and helping us out. We really appreciate y'all. Would you like me to pull this out? Benicia, do you have a laptop for your slides, or does Karen have it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to leave it in or pull it out? What would you like me to do? Probably pull it out, right?
Pull it out, yeah. Okay. And you can switch HDMI inputs for.
Yeah, I shared about the child at the Plato this morning. Another powerful story. We were driving the bus, and one of the young girls she's about 9 or 10 years old, and I was driving, and she got something was going on in the back, and I didn't know if something was wrong, but there's a translator who comes along on the bus because we don't know. And what was going on was she had seen a school and recognized that it was a school, and she was so excited that she was now, by being in this country, going to get to go to school. Wow. And I think about that like when all of our kids dread going back to school. When I dreaded going back to school, but she was just overwhelmed that that was a school and she was going to get to go to school. That's what horrible on the bus was.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah before I...
I've asked this before, and I see expectant patients during your program. How long is the Medicaid benefits, and does that translate over to the husbands as well?
So that's a good question, and I am not as familiar with the new changes with Medicaid. There's definitely been changes for our refugee folks. Like I said, the new budget bill changed the food stamps, and there were upcoming changes for Medicaid. So my understanding is still the first 90 days, they're all covered with Medicaid because they need to get those regular health screenings. Sometimes that's delayed, sometimes it goes up and down. From my understanding, the folks that still have Medicaid and their financial status is not messing with that, a lot of them still have it, but come October, there will be big changes. So I think a lot of them will be dropped from
I
Medicaid.
see the men are getting dropped
In
left
October.
and right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That is expected from that new budget bill. That was, so this is not unexpected. I mean, we're sad about it, but it's not just like, what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
So there's nothing we can do about it. But it was, for a while, it was dependent, kind of like food stamps, it was dependent on your financial, status, just like anyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then food stamps got dropped pretty quickly for refugees. Medicaid was a little bit of a slower drop, but I will say that our employment team has been preparing for this for at least, I would say like 9 months, and educating our population on you need to get your benefits through your work. And that means that you're gonna have to lose some of the stuff from, but what I'm saying is they are being taught that at our office.
Good.
But if they elect not to, that's on them. But we've had info sessions, we are there for when someone says my Medicaid's dropped, the case manager will inform them on how to do that. And while we're sad about that, and that's hard, at the same time, it's not like no one else has ever dealt with this in the world, right? It's like, okay, well, this is part of being an American. I mean, in some ways, right now, you can't do it because you're a refugee, but also it's like, okay, not every American has food stamps forever. Like, that's life, And so sometimes we're trying to kind of educate our folks from that immigrant perspective.
And door for kills and Condor, okay? And I know they're gonna be hard schools, okay? That's a hard community, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready, and I'm ready to be loyal. They have not had a very consistent social worker over the years, and I know that's what people need. They need some consistency. It takes people time to trust people. It takes kids to trust people, especially if they've been through a whole lot. So I don't do social work. I always say I don't do it to fill my pockets. I do it to fill my heart. Okay? And it's my purpose, and if I don't feel like I have a purpose when I'm in a position, I'm not happy. Okay? All right, so Richland 2 school social workers. We like to bridge the gap between home, school, and community. And I'm sorry, my leg is shaking. We like to bridge the gap between home, school, and community. And so we like to partner with our stakeholders so we can put those programs in place, like our backpack programs and things like that. Because even when Sarah was talking about the food stamps getting cut, I know that like one time this school year, food stamps got cut for some of the people who are citizens, So we were, as social workers, trying to see what we can do to make sure that those students still had food. Because we know when we're hungry, we can't think, we can't be effective, we can't be efficient. So we do a lot with our backpack programs. School supplies. School supplies is a big one. A lot of kids will come to school and they'll have some stuff, but they don't have everything. And especially high school, you get different lists per classes, and based on what you're taking, you're gonna need different school supplies. And so if we want to make education equitable and have those kids be able to take those AP classes that they may need a scientific bit calculator for, you may need extra transportation to get from your job site because you want to work credit or an internship outside of school and things like that. We also work with academics. So like for us as social workers, I have a checklist in my head, and all the other social workers probably think like me too. When I go in power school and I get referred a student, I'm looking at their attendance, I'm looking at their behaviors, I'm looking at those underlying things that you may see but I want to see what the root cause is. You know, you may not be doing well academically because you've had a lapse in education, you know, or you can't get to school, or it's transportation and things like that. And that's when we come in to try to bridge that gap and use resources like Lutheran Services, if we know, or like you guys, you know, like our community. If we did not have you guys, I don't know what we would do, because we have lost a lot of funding. We have lost some teachers because we have 3 charter schools coming here. So when the charter schools come, they're public education. And so after, I think it's day 45 or something, they get the funding, but as public schools, we have to take them back. You know, charter schools, they can say, yeah, we can't handle this behavior. We need y'all to go over here. You know, I don't think it's right, but, and everybody doesn't do that, okay? And I'm saying that all charter schools or all private schools do that, but I've seen it happen before. But that's what we are dealing with. We're gonna have to deal with a lack of students, and so some of our teachers gonna have overcrowded classrooms. Some of our positions have been 1 duty, now they're 3 duties, so it's like 3 positions in 1. But we're gonna make it work, okay? Because we're loyal people. And so another thing that we do is a lot of Christmas help. I know everybody's like, Christmas isn't about gifts, but for kids it is. They see all of their friends and things, and it gives us a chance to let people know what Christmas is really about. You know, it does give us a chance to do that. I love how you guys stand in front. I don't know when it was. I was riding down the street. My family was having a hard day. Car quiet, it's hot. You guys were standing out with snack bags and water, and it had a message in it. And the smiles on it. That's what we need in this community. It's been a lot going on. My daughter is losing a lot of friends. Because I stay 1 mile from where that shooting happened. You know, it's a lot of stuff going on in our community. And the words that you guys put on the side of the street, the words that you put on your banner, people see that. They see that. They see you standing outside the street, and they see that, and they feel seen. And I know that's what Lutheran Services does for the community. You make them feel seen. Sometimes people just need to feel seen. I don't know what else. Let's see. I want to go on a tangent. So we have 23 school social workers, 5 full-time at high schools, 5 full-time at middle schools, and everyone else shares 2 schools. Our demographics right now is 63% pupils in poverty. Joseph Kills has 95%. Cunder has 92%. And Jackson Creek has 92%, and Cunder has 89% of pupils in poverty.
Oh my goodness.
Right,
Wow.
right. So I want to be connected. When I tell y'all, I'm gonna be there for that community. And I don't want to say that I'm excited, but I'm loyal, you know, and I'm gonna work hard. And I want to be there for that. The community has had a whole lot going on, and I just feel like they need a consistent face. Almost like when you're out there in the car lines, when people ride by and they needed that face or those words. That's what I want to be for those schools. I want to be there. If you could just see my face, I'm here to help. I'm not here to hurt. I'm not here to judge. That's not for me to do, you know. And so, yeah. And I told you guys about the 3 charter schools coming here, and we're prepared to have reduction of around $25 million for the 26-27 school year due to lower enrollment. So some of the needs, how you guys can help, basic needs like our backpack program. At our schools, we give backpacks to go home on the weekends, and they get breakfast items, lunch, and dinners for the weekend. Gas cards, financial assistance, the tree, the Christmas help that you give us, and it just encourage family members to communicate with schools. Just let us know what's going on. A lot of times they don't let us know what's going on until like it's an emergency. And I'm like, okay, it's Friday at 4 o'clock and you just told me your lights turned off. Everybody's gone, like, what are we gonna do type thing. And we try, like, I'm gonna say we try, but like I said, our funding is cut, she said 25 million for the projected school year. And so we're worried about that because we do help our students out a lot. Our McKinney-Vento students, we provide transportation for them. That costs a lot of money. Now, Abby does a great job because we do get a McKinney-Vento federal education grant every year, but that does not cover everything. And it's specific for those kids who are considered homeless. Is there anything else I may be missing?
What school did you say that are you going to be a social worker?
Yes, I'm serving Joseph Kills and Cunder Elementary. And y'all, I come from high school background. Even before I came to Richland too, I was at Irvo High. But I worked reading camps. I worked elementary before, but most of my stuff is high school. However, I have a high schooler living in my house right now. I need to remember where she came from. So it's probably gonna
Joseph Keels is one of our backpacks.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
so we do 25 bags, backpack bags for Joseph Keels.
Yes, with Mr. Brown. So in the transition of my position, I was covering Kills and still doing my other job too. So I got to talk to Mr. Brown a lot.
Okay.
And so I knew that we were going to be partnering with you guys at Kills. So yeah. I'm excited about that. Let's see, do I have anything else? Christmas, we do, I'm concerned about some of our staff because our staff they do have kids that go in Richland too. And when they lost their positions or their positions got reduced, when I was at Spring Valley and a lot of things were going on, I would open like some of my Thanksgiving baskets up. It would be anonymous, and some of my Christmas help up to some of the staff. My husband was a teacher assistant before he became a teacher. Yeah, that was, okay, $20,000 a year, okay? And we was about to have a brand new kid. So I could just imagine for something like our IT, they cut a lot of the IT positions and they're having to go to instructional assistant positions and things like that. Even if my days got reduced, I was a 200-day employee, now I'm 190, so that means your check changes a little bit. So I'm saying all of that to say that it's gonna be some staff members with children who can also benefit from the help. I think that us as their colleagues just have to make them feel comfortable enough to come to us with their help. And that can be hard sometimes because you don't want anybody knowing. But I found a roundabout way of doing it when I was at Spring Valley. So I think that it's just about how you approach them and engage them and make people feel like you care and that you see them, okay?
Yeah. This ties in with our backpack program. So we do 80 bags when the school year starts. We do 25 for Keels. We do 30 for Rice Creek. And 15 for Blythewood Academy, and then 10 for Muller Road.
Okay.
So we sort of tried to spread our
spread
backpack. But for the Christmas in July event, we're going to be collecting school supplies, which will determine what schools needed. I know Richland too, I think, also has a school supply drive that they do right before school. It's hard to believe that, what is it, another 3 weeks and school starts again. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it went fast. So we do run through a lot of backpacks, as you can imagine, because some of the backpacks break. We do run through, I'm thinking like a lot of backpacks. I'm trying to figure out what else. The graphing paper and colored pencils and things like that they can use at home. I know you're serving mostly elementary schools, so
yes,
we don't have to worry about scientific calculators and things like that.
I can tell you what's on the list.
You can tell?
If you want to, Debbie,
yes.
Tell them what's on the list.
Book bags, number 2 pencils, large pink erasers, glue sticks, hand sanitizers, composition books, crayons, dry erase markers, wide rule notebook, paper, colored pencils, water bottles, alarm clocks,
Oh yes.
Like,
I'm sorry.
should that be like a digital or?
Like where you have to plug in and they got to get up and walk across the
So maybe a okay.
You know, as a teacher's interventionist, I have researched, they have some that fly.
I've seen the ones that run across.
Yeah, and the ones that run away and hide, and you have to get up and go find them. Because a lot of times our kids,
I think that's great.
we're getting up with our phones, and most of the time the phone's right there. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Have your alarm clocks is a big one. Like we get.
When I talked to Christy Hutchison from Rice Creek, you know, and I asked her what specific supplies she says alarm clock, and I go, alarm clock? That's not on the official Richland 2 list, you know. And she goes, you wouldn't believe how many times we have students coming in late because they have the phone and it just clicks off and they don't get up. She said, I need a regular, just a old-fashioned alarm clock where they have to get up and go and turn it off. I go, okay, we'll put alarm clocks on.
And we put that on their attendance intervention plans or their success plans or whatever, because that's an intervention. Like, okay, I know we can't be at the house for every single student to get them up on time to the bus and all that stuff, but that's something that we can give them instruction. Put it across the room, not by you. Turn it all the way up, and then because we need them to show up to school, because that's connected to their academics and behavior. If you're not getting up on a good time and you're not got your brain together, then you might come to school acting out a little bit. You know.
So does anybody have any questions for Venetia?
I was just going to ask you. I know in elementary school the teachers need stuff. They spend a lot of money on supplies and stuff like that. Can we donate, like tissues are a big thing.
Yes,
you know, to donate for it to have in the classrooms for the teachers. Would that be okay?
Yes, most definitely, because they do need stuff like that. They need those Lysol wipes and things, especially in elementary school. I'm kind of scared about that. But elementary school, they do need a lot of hand sanitizer and wipes and things like that, just to keep the classroom, you know, safe for kids, so they won't get sick and miss so many days. But a lot of teachers do have Amazon wish lists too. If I can talk to some of my teacher friends, my husband's a teacher at St. Andrews Middle School. If I could talk to some of his friends and kind of get an idea of what teachers really, really are looking for in their classrooms to make it more effective and efficient when they're teaching, then I get with Karen and let her know some additional stuff. I'm sorry I'm rambling, but I really enjoyed y'all service today. I tell people, like, I go to St. Louis Episcopal Church, so like I was like, oh, this is I like this. So thank y'all for inviting me, and I text my husband, I said, we need to come here. I was like, right on the street. So yes, thank you.
A few other R2 things. So when we I always tell the story because folks are either forget or just don't know. So when we were compensated for the property that the DOT took from us, we, just like we do in our own lives, when we're blessed with something, before we think about what we need, we take 10% and say we're going to honor God with that. And so we did that, and we do that in our own lives with our paychecks, or when we inherit something, whatever it is, we're blessed with something. And we said, so 10% of that is going to honor God. And you remember we had the house gatherings. We talked about what the needs were. It was like the young, and what arose was young people in our community who were in stress. And so we did 3 grants. One was to Lutheran Services. At that time, it was for their foster care of the young people who are coming out of foster care. And that's a huge problem when you're in foster care until you're 17 or 18. And then all of a sudden, you're on your own. And you think about people in your families, kids you raised, and if at 18 you had no more contact with them, couldn't support them in anything, couldn't help them with anything, and how they would just be out there, right? Well, that's what happens with the kids who are in foster care. When they're 18, they're just cut off of everything, and they're like, you got to live on your own. And so this foster care for those transitioning out of foster care was a big grant for Lutheran Services. And then we did the grant for Palmetto Place. Youth will hear more from them. And we did a grant for Richland 2 social work. One thing that was established, you may not know that schools have food pantries or food closets in them, but they didn't have any way to store like real food. So part of the grant purchased 6 refrigerators, so there could be a refrigerator refrigerator / freezer in those food closets / pantries where they can put like real food or freeze food. And then established a fund that Abby, the director, has complete, total access to, which was the Emergency Social Work Fund. And it cut through all the red tape or other things, and when there's some student that has a crisis, Abby can use that fund to help them when there's no other resources out there. And this is what, the 6th year of that fund, maybe, I think, and that fund continues to exist. We also do the Helping Hands alerts. Those will go out every once in a while, where we hear from Abby or one of the social workers that, some child in the school, the house burned, something happened, whatever, and there'll be a Helping Hands alert. That's what you'll see. It'll go out and say, we need a bed, we need furniture, we need something. So when you see Helping Hands alert, they're not just from the R2 social workers, sometimes they're from Lutheran Services or Palmetto Place, but many of those come through the R2 social work. But really encouraged, there is, and before COVID hit, many of you were starting in the mentoring program. So if you want to make a difference in this world, really consider that going and reading, adopting a child, reading with the child, being in a school, just you talked about a face, for them to have a face in their life that actually cares about them. You're not obligated to like be doing things and out whatever, but just to be there for them in a school every once in a while. If we at the time when the COVID hit, our goal was if we had 50 Living Springs people who were in a school every once a week, just reading with the child or doing, the impact on that would be so huge. What it would be. You don't have to tutor or whatever. It's just there are all kinds of variations. It's just to show up and read a book. That's an amazing thing to be able to do. We often, we were talking about this in the ladies' Bible study, we often hear this thing is like, God's not in the schools, or Jesus is not in the schools. Well, if it is, nobody else did that, we do that. We choose to do that. Because if we go and volunteer in the school, then God is in the school, and Jesus is in the school. And that's how to resolve that. Even we may not speak it, right? The second lesson today is that Christ is in you. So you can go and be Christ to a child, even if you're not evangelizing or doing something, right? And that can make a huge difference. We probably are in all hands on deck in the next few years because of many of the things she was talking about, the funding shortage. I'm not speaking against charter schools, but that's already cut $25 million out of the Richland 2 budget for next year, laying off teachers. The class sizes are going to go up. Those poverty numbers she was talking about are going to go up in all the schools, so that the percentage of people in the public schools are going to be more, it's going to be 95%, whatever, the more the charter schools grow. So whatever, and again, not speaking against them, that's just the description of what's going to be the reality. So we're kind of all hands on deck with many of these young people and the students. So appreciate what you do, appreciate what Sarah does every day, and we just continue to uplift this. So we've got a few minutes if folks want to navigate to someone or ask some personal questions or whatever that might be. We'll close with prayer, so let's pray. Oh, good and gracious God, we remember how Jesus invited children to come to him and to be reminded that they are special and loved and cared for, and even when others would want to keep them away. We ask that you would be with all the social workers at Richland 2, with all the staff and families of Lutheran Services, particularly be with teachers and students as a new school year begins, and to be with all those who continue to confront so much in the world. Bless the work of these faithful servants, that it might be that they might be for your mission of love in the world. For it is in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank y'all.
Before we break up, if I could ask Sarah to just share really quickly, at the event that Pastor Eric and I and some of the others were at, you guys shared about our particular family and the girls from the family and how they were like leaders at the health camp. And there are so many people in this room that were really hands-on involved with our original family. Could you share that briefly? Because I think that's such like a highlight and a full circle moment.
Well, just what I had said about the health classes, you remember? So, the girls from y'all's family that y'all worked with are part of that class. And I think one or two of them say gigs, right?
That I don't know,
I
but
think
you guys
one
were
of them
saying
is
they were like
engaged.
really leading and helping
Yes.
because they've been here for so
Yes,
long.
and really getting the opportunity to hear and be educated about their bodies, about, what to expect with motherhood and pregnancy and all of that, things that they didn't know, and then also, I mean, and like I said, their family was, signed off on this, so it's not like a secret or anything, but it's just been a wonderful opportunity. And we have an interpreter that goes to that class with my colleague, and, anyway, it's just been lovely, but yes, they've been leaders in other things for sure. I know they're very involved in that class, and so it's been lovely to watch. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want everybody else to hear that.
Yeah.
It was like 2021, right? Is that when? Yeah.